The morning began like any other ordinary day on Earth. In Lagos, vendors arranged their small stalls before the sun had even risen. The smell of frying food drifting through the thick, humid air. In Mumbai, the city was already awake. Millions of people filling trains, buses, and crowded streets in the restless rhythm of a place that rarely slept. In Sao Paulo, children were preparing for school, their parents rushing through morning routines. In Tokyo, office workers stood in neat lines outside tiny coffee shops near train stations. In New York, the sun had not yet climbed above the horizon, and the city was slowly stretching awake after a long night. No one was looking up at the sky. No one had any reason to. Humanity had known about alien life for 62 years. The discovery had not come with fireworks or panic. It began quietly with a strange signal detected by a deep space listening array near Jupiter. Scientists spent 4 years decoding it before realizing it contained structured mathematical patterns. When humanity finally replied with its own sequence, the answer came back 9 months later. After that, communication became routine. Within 2 decades. Earth had been formally introduced to the Galactic Concord, a vast political alliance, made up of 47 alien species scattered across a huge region of the galaxy. For humanity. It should have been the greatest moment in history. In many ways. It was. Scientists celebrated the confirmation that humanity was not alone. Governments rushed to create new departments for extraterrestrial diplomacy. Universities rewrote entire academic programs. Philosophers and historians filled libraries with books about what it meant for human civilization. The world buzzed with excitement and hope. But the Galactic Concord did not see humanity the same way humans saw them. To the powerful civilizations of the Concord, humanity looked like a distant, poor relative who had shown up uninvited at an elegant dinner party. They were polite. They answered questions. They allowed humanity a small seat at the far end of the table. But they never truly welcomed them, and they certainly never respected them. Most Concord species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Some of their civilizations were older than human writing. Their medical technology could regrow lost limbs. Their power systems could fuel entire planets. Their weapons could shatter moons. Humanity, by comparison, had only left its solar system 40 years earlier. To them, humans were young, small, primitive. One empire in particular had very little patience for them. The Varith Dominion. The Varith were a towering reptilian species, heavily built and covered in dark green and gray scales that resembled natural armor. They came from a harsh world called Breath Prime, a scorching desert planet deep in the eastern reaches of the galaxy. Their civilization had been built on conquest. For more than 3 centuries they had expanded by finding weaker species, stripping their systems of resources, and forcing surviving populations into servitude, erasing them entirely. Across the Concord. The Varith were feared. Even the powerful species treated them carefully. The Varith had been watching Earth for a long time. The solar system was far richer than most humans realized. The asteroid belts alone contained unimaginable quantities of rare metals. The gas giants held massive stores of exotic elements used in advanced technologies, and Earth itself perfectly positioned. Within its stars, habitable, zone contained. Biological diversity that fascinated Varith scientists. The Dominion wanted it. They had wanted it for years, but they waited not out of fear, and certainly not out of respect. They waited because conquering a system inside Concord territory without justification created political complications. Even ruthless empires preferred to avoid unnecessary diplomatic headaches. So they worked quietly. In the chambers of the Galactic Concord. Varith representatives pushed to delay humanity's application for full membership. They circulated reports, some accurate, many exaggerated, about how violent and unstable humans were. Every year, Earth's request for full membership was delayed, dismissed, or quietly ignored. Asterisk without full membership. Earth had no protection under Concord law. Asterisk. That was the detail the Dominion had been waiting for. Asterisk. Once their scouts confirmed that humanity's deep space military forces were still limited capable ships, yes, but nothing resembling the fleets of a true interstellar power, the Varith High Command made its decision. Asterisk the solar system was too valuable to ignore, and humanity was too weak to stop them. Attack came without warning. Asterisk there was no declaration of war, no ultimatum, no final message offering surrender. Asterisk. The Varith did not believe in giving prey the chance to run. Asterisk 17 Dominion warships entered the solar system. Simultaneously from 3 different approach vectors, the maneuver was designed to split defensive responses and overwhelm any attempt at coordination. Asterisk. Earth's early warning systems detected them less than 4 hours. Before they reached orbital range, asterisk for hours was barely enough. Time to raise alarms. Asterisk at 6:42 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. The bombardment began. The Varith did not even bother using their most powerful weapons. Instead, they relied on enormous orbital mass drivers railgun platforms capable of firing dense, metallic projectiles toward a planet at extreme velocity. When those projectiles struck the surface, the kinetic energy released was comparable to a nuclear detonation, minus the radiation. Clean destruction. Efficient. Asterisk. The first strikes landed across 7 continents at once. Asterisk. Mumbai was gone within minutes. São Paulo followed soon after. Lagos. Shanghai, Cairo, Los Angeles, London, Moscow. Asterisk, each wave of fire was precise and calculated. The Dominion had studied human infrastructure for years. They knew where the power grids were. They knew where military commands were located. They knew where the population centers were. They targeted all of it. For hours. Earth's communication networks filled with panic, desperate reports, and cries for help before entire regions went silent. Asterisk governments tried to coordinate responses. Military commanders scrambled aircraft and missiles. Asterisk a handful of pilots launched humanity's small defensive spacecraft and flew directly toward the alien. Warships, they were never designed for such a battle. Most were destroyed quickly. Asterisk but not before leaving. Scars. A few Varith ships reported minor damage. The Dominion logged the data with mild curiosity and continued firing. Asterisk within the first hour. The Galactic Concord detected the attack. Asterisk on the massive Concord Central Station, a colossal artificial structure, drifting in neutral space. Delegates from dozens of alien species watched live data from Earth's system. Asterisk some reacted with shock. Asterisk others felt quiet relief that the attack was not directed at them. Asterisk a few watched with cold indifference. Their civilizations had seen events like this before. Asterisk the Varith ambassador, a reptilian official named Draxus, sat calmly with his scaled hands folded. He did not appear concerned. Delegate from a smaller species leaned toward him and asked quietly whether the Dominion intended to stop the assault. Asterisk Draxus glanced at him, the way a large predator might look at something small and harmless. Asterisk. When we are finished, he said, we will stop.
Asterisk.
9 hours into the bombardment, the Concord issued an official statement. It expressed deep concern. It called for an immediate ceasefire. It urged all parties to seek a peaceful solution. Asterisk.
Asterisk.
It was the kind of statement that meant very little. Everyone knew it. The Dominion acknowledged it and continued firing. Asterisk for 72 hours. The strikes continued. Asterisk not every city was destroyed. 17 ships could only do so much across an entire planet. But the devastation was immense. Asterisk when the bombardment finally ended. The numbers were almost impossible to comprehend. Asterisk 2.3 billion people were dead. Asterisk. Cities that had existed for thousands of years were erased. Coastlines had changed shape from the force of repeated impacts. Fires burned across entire regions of the planet. Asterisk from orbit. Earth looked wounded, but it was not silent. This was the first thing that surprised the Verith. They had expected chaos. They had expected collapse. Asterisk, their historical models predicted the usual pattern: panic, fragmentation, then gradual surrender once resistance seemed hopeless. Asterisk instead. Something else happened. Humanity did not break. There was grief and unimaginable, crushing grief shared by the entire planet. Asterisk, but beneath it was something colder. Anger. Not wild rage that burns out quickly. Something slower. Something patient. Asterisk, across ruined cities and shattered landscapes. Survivors looked at each other and understood something without needing to say it. Asterisk. This was not over. Asterisk, deep beneath the damaged remains of Geneva, the surviving members of the United Earth Council gathered in an emergency session. Asterisk. Delegates arrived from every surviving nation. Some came physically, others connected through emergency communication links. Asterisk, many had lost family members in the attacks. None of them had slept. The meeting lasted for hours. Asterisk, there were no long debates. Asterisk, no political factions arguing. Only one question mattered. What happens now? Every delegate voted the same way. They activated a document that had been written decades earlier and sealed away in classified archives. It was called the Total War Authorization. Asterisk. The resolution granted the United Earth Military Command unlimited authority to mobilize every remaining resource on the planet. Political limits on military development were removed. All surviving national forces were merged under a single command. Asterisk, in a single decision. Humanity transformed itself. Asterisk, before the council adjourned. They approved one final transmission. Asterisk, it was broadcast on every frequency Earth possessed, including those monitored by the Galactic Concord. Asterisk, the message was brief. It contained no threats, no emotional language, just one sentence. We are still here. We remember everything. Verith heard it. Ambassador Draxus laughed. Sentimental, he remarked. But inside the Concord chamber, several older delegates shifted uneasily. Asterisk. One ancient representative from a long-lived species quietly pulled up records of human history's centuries of wars, recoveries, collapses, and unexpected resurgences. He read for a long time. When he finally closed the file, the calm expression he normally wore had vanished. In its place was something close to worry, back on Earth. Humanity had already begun to move, not in panic. With purpose, asterisk military units reorganized. Scientists and engineers were quietly relocated to secure facilities. Hidden bases unknown even to most governments before the attack were activated. Asterisk grief remained everywhere. But grief hardened into resolve. In a quiet town in northern Canada, untouched by the bombardment, a 16-year-old girl sat on the roof of her house and stared at the stars. Asterisk. She had never thought much about them before. Now she did. Somewhere in that vast darkness, something had decided that her world did not matter, that billions of lives were nothing more than resources waiting to be taken. Asterisk, she was already thinking about what she would do. When she was old enough to fight back, she was not the only one. Across Earth, a generation was forming not just of people, but of purpose. They would grow up knowing exactly what the galaxy had done. The Verith Dominion celebrated their victory and began planning the next phase: resource extraction, orbital control platforms, and the slow transformation of the solar system into a